The WNBA draft ratings are officially in, and boy, oh boy, do we have some things to talk about.
Let's talk about the elephant in the locker room. You know exactly who we mean. Geno Auriemma, the UConn legend, master of the passive-aggressive soundbite, and the unofficial president of the Anybody But Caitlin Clark fan club. His crown jewel, Paige Bueckers, just had her WNBA draft moment. But instead of the media storm we saw when Caitlin Clark went #1 last year, this time, the response was quiet, almost too quiet. And honestly, it felt like a major reality check.
For the last few months, the mainstream media, they have tried to convince us that Paige Bueckers is a draw. Me personally, I think she's a star, but I'm not exactly convinced that she is a draw.
Let's not sugarcoat it. Paige Bueckers' draft viewership didn't just fall short, it flat out flopped compared to Caitlin Clark's. Around 1.3 million tuned in for Bueckers, but when Clark declared last year, a jaw-dropping 2.6 million watched. That's twice the audience, twice the hype. And if you think that's just a random fluke, you haven't been paying close enough attention.
You'll find a lot of stars, but there's only a handful of draws. There's only a handful of people over the past 40 or 50 years who have the impact, the drawing power to elevate the product into the mainstream.
The media's been bending over backwards trying to crown Paige Bueckers as the next face of women's basketball. ESPN's rolling out highlight reels, feature interviews, and even sneaking in that classic Geno Auriemma smirk during post-game pressers, all to keep the narrative going. But here's the truth. No amount of Connecticut mystique or coach speak can hide what the numbers make crystal clear. Clark is the draw. Period.
Whether or not Paige Bueckers is a star or a draw, that remains to be seen. Judging by the ratings for the Dump Diver draft the other night, Paige Bueckers is not a mainstream draw yet. WNBA drew 1.3 million viewers the other night for the draft on ESPN. Now, that number, it can be credited 100% to Paige Bueckers because every other player involved was completely unknown.
This isn't about Paige lacking talent. She's got serious game. No one's denying that. But star power, that rare magnetism that fills arenas and dominates sports talk, that belongs to Caitlin Clark. And with these draft numbers, the basketball world just voted with their eyes. And they weren't buying into the Geno-led hype train. Let's be real. Geno Auriemma has a legendary resume, more titles than most franchises. But lately, his commentary feels less like expert insight and more like that of a jealous uncle watching the spotlight shift.
Although 1.3 million is a great number for the WNBA, it is significantly below what Caitlin Clark drew last year. Matter of fact, it's 50% lower than what Caitlin Clark drew last year.
You know the type. The one who shows up at Thanksgiving dinner throwing out passive-aggressive jabs like, "That's nice, but back in my day." Yeah, that's been Geno with Caitlin Clark for the past 2 seasons.
You're a great college player, like Caitlin was. The delusional fan base that follows her disrespected the WNBA players by saying she's going to go in that league and tear it apart. There were actually odds on she's 3rd or 4th in betting odds on being MVP of the WNBA. These people are so disrespectful and so unknowledgeable and so stupid that it gives women's basketball a bad name. Okay, so the kid was set up for failure right from the beginning.
He's been brushing off her numbers, downplaying her impact, and calling her fans delusional every chance he gets. Meanwhile, his star player just got outshined by someone who, spoiler alert, didn't need a UConn jersey to become a national icon. The UConn PR machine might still be humming, but the wheels are starting to wobble. During the draft broadcast, the energy was off. Interviews fell flat, names got mispronounced, and the whole vibe felt muted, like everyone knew they were standing in the shadow of last year's main event.
I'm here with Anissa and Rakia.
No.
And we are holding it down right now. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
It's okay.
Sorry. What?
Go ahead, say your name.
Cheyenne Zellers. I'm so sorry. That is embarrassing. Cheyenne, I apologize, by the way. That's so embarrassing.
Even longtime broadcaster Tim Wilson didn't hold back. Off air, he said the difference between this year's draft and last year's was night and day. And he's not wrong. One featured a star who made history. The other, a star the league is trying to manufacture.
2025 second most viewed WNBA draft of all time with an average of 1.25 million viewers with a peak of 1.46 million viewers, up 119% versus 2023. And I know what the question may be, 2023, 2020. Well, Ben, just out of curiosity, because we're all curious around here, right? We all want to be well informed. What is it compared to the 2024 draft?
So let's zoom out. Why do ratings matter this much? Because in pro sports, ratings aren't just numbers. They're dollar signs. They drive ad revenue, sponsorship deals, TV contracts, the whole business. A 49% drop in viewership isn't just a bad night. It's a full-blown marketing crisis. That's boardroom-level panic. That's someone at ESPN getting a very uncomfortable Zoom call from their boss.
It's down 49%. 49% of the audience said, yeah, I'll go watch paint dry instead. In fact, some people, Jason Whitlock, he didn't even realize the WNBA draft took place the other night. He found that out the next morning, that Paige Bueckers and the WNBA draft had actually taken place. Last year, 2.45 million, peaked with 3.09 million, up 307% from the previous high back in 2004.
Here's where it gets especially awkward. ESPN and the WNBA spent months hyping Paige like she was the next big thing, the one to carry the torch into a new era. They tried to run the same playbook they used for Clark: feature stories, non-stop coverage, teases of a generational moment. But the public didn't buy in. And really, why would they? When the original is still lighting it up every night, who's settling for the imitation?
601,000 from 2004. So 2024 was up 307% from 2004. 1.06 million women viewers was the 2024 draft. Now here we go, folks. This is when we get into the nooks, into the crannies, and into the fun.
And let's not forget social media. Twitter lit up the moment those numbers dropped. No Caitlyn, no ratings, one viral post read. Another said, they tried to replace the sun with a flashlight. Harsh, but spot on. The public isn't confused. They've already made their choice. Caitlin Clark isn't just a part of women's basketball. Right now, she is women's basketball.
Why was last year's draft such a big deal? Well, Caitlin Clark was getting drafted. Reason number one, Caitlin Clark getting drafted. Reason number two, why it was such a big deal. Well, Caitlin Clark was going number one overall. And the third reason why, calling a spade here, these three women, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, Cameron Brink. Perfect storm. A perfect storm, a perfect bill of goods.
And that's exactly what's driving people like Geno Auriemma crazy. It must sting, right? To spend decades building the most iconic brand in women's college hoops, only to watch a player from Iowa steal the spotlight. Caitlin Clark did what no one outside of UConn has managed in years. She made women's basketball must-watch TV. She turned regular season games into headline news, made college gyms feel like NBA arenas, and she did it all without Geno's help. In fact, she did it despite the constant side-eyes from people like him.
Didn't you tell us that in 2004 it was 601,000? My point exactly. They still haven't rebounded from the days of 2004. They still haven't managed to maintain that same audience from 2004. Until Caitlin Clark showed up. Until Caitlin Clark arrived on the scene, and then they're going to boast about a measly 1.25 million. You guys want to know what's funny about 1.25 million? 1.25 million is closer to the 601,000 in 2004 than it is to the 2.45 million in 2025. We're already closer to 2004 numbers than we were to 2025 numbers.
This whole saga highlights the real issue. The WNBA and its media partners are still holding on to outdated formulas. They think they can just assemble a superstar by committee, hit the next face of the league button, and fans will automatically follow. But you can't fake charisma, and you can't fake star power. Caitlin Clark has both in abundance.
1 million people disappeared. 1.2 million people, to be fair, disappeared. We can spin that as many ways as we want. the trend is already coming back down. The trend is already coming back down. Juju Watkins next year draft, 1.09 million. Oh, another 1 million view draft. But we went from 2.4 to 1.2 to now 1.09. Who's after Juju? My point exactly. We're already forecasting a 2027 draft of 650,000.
Paige Bueckers might be part of the league's future. She might win titles, earn all-star nods, and have an incredible pro career. But based on this draft, she's not the one leading the way. That honor goes to the woman wearing number 22 in Indiana. Meanwhile, Geno can keep holding press conferences filled with condescending jabs and subtle digs, but while he's stuck reminiscing about the past, Caitlin Clark is out here defining the future.
Unlike Caitlin Clark, Paige Bueckers has been embraced with open and hairy arms into the WNBA. Players have embraced her potentially in ways that we don't even know about. More importantly, the mainstream media has embraced her, and I'm starting to wonder if this media-created rivalry that is building between Paige Bueckers and Caitlin Clark will completely overshadow Angel Reese.
When you put Paige Bueckers and Caitlin Clark side by side, there's one glaring question the media conveniently avoids. What holds more weight, lifting a trophy once or completely rewriting the NCAA record books like you're the editor-in-chief? The mainstream narrative has heavily leaned into Bueckers' championship win, practically framing it as the ultimate badge of greatness. But in doing so, they've overshadowed Caitlin Clark's statistical domination, erasing long-standing records. Caitlin didn't just break a few old benchmarks, she obliterated them, accomplishing things that no one, man or woman, has ever done in college basketball.
I've seen Paige Bueckers across social media for the last 5 years, it feels like. She's an elite female college basketball player. Had some knee injuries that she's rebounded from, but she's healthy right now. So she kind of sits behind Caitlin Clark. And I think that makes her a fade for me because I think the Caitlin Clark shadow is real. I think Caitlin Clark is so dominant in changing the game.
Sure, Bueckers brought home a national title for UConn. And yes, that's a huge accomplishment that deserves recognition. But let's not kid ourselves. Caitlin Clark took a sledgehammer to a record that had been cemented for 50 years, a half-century of scoring history, gone in the blink of an eye, all thanks to one player who made logo threes look routine. That's not just impressive, it's myth-making.
And for as much as people want to say Paige Bueckers is this, Paige Bueckers is that, Paige Bueckers is this, a 500,000 drop-off, okay. A 1.2 million viewer drop-off? Yikes. That I'm not sure if that is okay.
And here's where it gets even crazier. Caitlin didn't stop there. She wasn't just content being the scoring queen, she also led the nation in assists multiple times. Let that sink in for a moment. She was racking up the most dimes in college basketball while simultaneously scoring more than anyone in history. That's like if Steph Curry and Chris Paul merged into one terrifying, record-breaking basketball machine. We're talking about a player who dominated in both creating and executing, an incredibly rare dual threat that the game hardly ever sees at this level. Now, let's break down the raw stats. Clark averaged 31.6 points, 8.9 assists, and 7.4 rebounds in her final college season. That's practically a walking triple-double every night. Bueckers, a solid 21.9 points, 3.8 assists, and 5.2 rebounds. No doubt impressive, but they don't carry the same weight as Clark's numbers. One was playing chess, the other was building the board and setting the rules.
Some of the reactions, people aren't going to let it skip that we're not comparing it to 2024, down 49%. Shout out to you, Jar Jar Binks. He had to let him know twice. Big win for the WNBA draft. Yeah, they did over 1 million, big win. They're closer to 2006 numbers, 2004 numbers than they were to 2024 numbers. You guys get the point. Why skip 2024? Does 2024 not exist?
What's even more frustrating is how the media seems determined to act like this gap doesn't exist. Instead of celebrating Caitlin Clark's avalanche of achievements, they pivot the conversation to banners and trophies. It's like comparing a volcanic eruption to a fireworks display. Sure, the latter's nice, but one reshapes landscapes, while the other is just a one-night show. Clark's impact went far beyond the box score. She turned ordinary games into national events. She didn't just fill arenas, she filled them with anticipation, headlines, and mainstream buzz. She didn't need a championship to transform the sport. She did it through sheer talent and a swagger that pulled millions in. Her influence was seismic, creating waves that reached into living rooms that had never tuned into women's college basketball before.
Great showing. Everything is compared to BC, before clock. That's right. We have a BC and we have an AC type of era in the WNBA. Guess 2024 never happened. I wonder why all the numbers are always compared to 2023. We all know why.
And let's not forget the circumstances. Caitlin Clark did all of this while being the #1 target every single night. Every team's game plan was centered on stopping her. Box and ones, triple teams, junk defenses, none of it worked. Everyone knew Caitlin was getting the ball, and yet she still torched them. That's legendary territory. Most stars crumble under that kind of pressure, but Clark, she thrived in it. Now, let's compare the narrative treatment. When LeBron James broke Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's scoring record, the sports world came to a halt. Wall-to-wall coverage, hour-long specials, think pieces everywhere. Caitlin Clark, she broke the all-time NCAA scoring record, a record untouched for 50 years, and got a few headlines before the conversation quickly pivoted to, yeah, but she doesn't have a ring. Really? Is that how we're grading greatness now?
1.25 isn't dominating. You maybe haven't been following the ratings. 1.25 is a regular Caitlin Clark game on a weekend. That's regular to us. That's nothing. That's nothing to us. It is what it is.
It's this kind of inconsistency that makes you question what's really going on. Both Bueckers and Clark are elite talents, but only one of them is constantly subjected to a barrage of qualifiers and caveats. Clark's facial expressions, her competitive fire, her very presence on the court, every little thing gets dissected and debated. Meanwhile, Bueckers gets fluff pieces and red carpet praise. It's not just a double standard, it's a coordinated PR effort dressed up as journalism. Then there's the WNBA draft presentation this year. If you were expecting a sequel to last year's dazzling Caitlin-fueled spectacle, you were sorely disappointed. Gone were the glamour shots and big-budget polish. Instead, we got awkward interviews, fashion choices that felt more like a TikTok experiment than a professional league moment, and an energy level that could best be described as a mid-afternoon nap. It didn't feel like a celebration. It felt like a reset.
I've also noticed that the media has been overwhelmingly positive in their coverage of Paige Bueckers. Now, this is pure speculation on my part, but this is what I think the media is doing. The spankers in the media actually believe that Caitlin Clark is popular because she's white. They think little girls idolize her because she lacks melanin. They think grown men watched women's basketball for the first time because a white girl was dominating the sport. I know for normal people it sounds ridiculous, but this is how our media thinks.
That shift in tone wasn't accidental. It felt like the league was making a statement. We're steering this ship in a different direction. A direction, mind you, that seems strangely allergic to the mainstream momentum Clark had built. Fans took notice, and social media exploded with side-by-side comparisons of last year's draft and this one. Where's the energy? Where's the class? Was the consensus? And the league offered no real explanation. Just silence and vibes. This wasn't just a vibe shift. It was a calculated branding decision. The league, it seems, is trying to redefine what it wants to be. But in doing so, it may be sacrificing the very thing that brought it to the spotlight. Caitlin Clark didn't just boost viewership. She redefined what was possible. And instead of embracing that, the WNBA is hedging its bets, hoping it can ride Paige Bueckers' narrative into a future they can more comfortably control.
I think the media is creating this rivalry between Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers, hoping that Paige Bueckers will become the new face of the WNBA. The media will continue demonizing Caitlin Clark while praising her rival. And they're hoping that people will instantly follow Paige Bueckers because she also lacks melanin. You see, the media is fine with Paige being the face of the WNBA because she's already proven to be a loyal comrade. They can depend on her, maybe even control her. They can't do that with Caitlin Clark, either because she is unwilling or she's realized that she does not need the media to be a mainstream draw.
The bias becomes crystal clear when you see how differently the media treats these two stars. Caitlin Clark is constantly under the microscope. Every facial expression, every defensive rotation, every missed shot gets dissected like she's on trial. Meanwhile, Paige Bueckers is practically coated in Teflon. She's praised in every headline, even when her numbers don't measure up. Some coverage has even veered into uncomfortable territory, with Clark's race being a point of criticism, while Bueckers gets a free pass. The contrast in treatment has become so obvious that fans aren't whispering about it anymore. They're calling it out loud. What we're seeing isn't a healthy rivalry between two great players. It's a media-manufactured showdown, engineered for headlines and drama, rather than letting the game speak for itself. Instead of amplifying the strengths of both athletes and celebrating what each brings to the court, the narrative machine seems obsessed with propping one up at the expense of the other. And here's the real danger. The millions of fans who tuned in because of Caitlin Clark are starting to notice this imbalance. They're seeing their favorite player dismissed, her impact minimized, and they're not sticking around to watch her get sidelined by media games. That's a problem because those ratings drops, that's what it looks like when fans start checking out.
You guys are about to find out, no offense to the Paige fans, you're gonna realize that once this season starts, it's still going to be Caitlin Clark 1 in jersey sales.
And honestly, it didn't have to be this way. Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers are both phenomenal in their own right. They could be a dynamic 1-2 punch, propelling women's basketball to new heights. Their contrasting playing styles, Clark with her range and firepower, Bueckers with her smooth control and composure, should be celebrated, not pitted against each other. This forced rivalry robs the game of something authentic. If the media would just step aside and let their stories unfold naturally, we might finally get the iconic rivalry the sport deserves. One born of respect, not manipulation, and most definitely not from Geno's mouth. If you agree, comment "Geno is delusional" down below. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we'll see you in the next one.